leave that to you.
Okay. There's a couple of things I wanted to just point out that basically dovetail lots of other issues that have arisen from today. I'm not a socially engaged artist, and I think the reason why I actually contacted IASKA initially about my interest in their program when they were just still in Kellerberrin was that essentially I love to travel, and I think your travel experience is universal, and you know you engage in the time frame that you're at that site or at that place, and you try to inform yourself about the local events and issues and news and all the stuff that one can do fairly easily if you speak the same language. And I think that's why I think seeing the biennial up, it's actually really interesting as a model, because not all the artists are badged as socially engaged artists, or that's their agenda. And I think that's why there's been so many interesting outcomes and so many different different sense of development in each of the projects. That's all I wanted to say about that. And also, I mean, I came at a time when Albany was in the crux of their big waterfront development as a new part of the town, and it's merging commercial and artistic infrastructure together. I don't know if you want to say a bit about the AEC.
Albany, and it's been really interesting listening to all the keynote speakers today, and Albany is in that unique place where, yes, it is built on a rural community, but it's a city in a rural space. And I think as far as arts and culture, there is a perception there that Albany is this amazing place of art. I would just wish somebody would tell Albany that. You know, it's an in-between place, and getting arts and culture happening down there is a very difficult place. And there seems to be, because it's a very old community, there's a lot of history. Albany was going to be the capital city of Western Australia. So there's lots of factional voices down there, and the people really care about the place, and they almost want to keep it secret. And it's to get arts and culture up in a place like that where there's many voices, there's a lot of commercial investment, a lot of rural investment, and it's a very difficult thing. And Mimi arrived right when we had our iconic entertainment centre being built, right on the foreshore, which was a very political thing as it is. If anybody knows Albany, Albany is about the water, it is about the maritime history, it's about whaling, fishing, surfing, beautiful beaches like Esperance, and it's the foreshore is almost sacred, and here they were building this iconic arts entertainment centre. It's not even a gallery, they don't want to know about visual arts, it's a performance and entertainment centre. It cost $70 million, and you know, state government paid for that. And it was interesting to note the fear aspect of some of the talk this morning, because it's like the local people thinking, well, who's going to pay for it? They're so petrified that their taxes and their rates are going to go up, and of course they did. And they were absolutely right. But my argument to that is society has to pay for culture and the arts. Artists give their sweat, their blood, their ideas. It costs us a fortune to be educated in the arts. Society has to pay for us, and that's all I've got to say for that. So, yes. So Mimi arrived at a very political time when the town was split.
The entertainment centre, its very core function, the architectural design, the very angular design, which you can kind of see the frame of in my drawing. I mean, all those things were fiercely hot topics, and it was the first bit of local news that was introduced to me, and I started to work backwards from that point, and thinking about, well, if this is what's happening right now, what was the history of that site and the corresponding side of the waterfront. And you know, like a lot of images, I mean, like, you know, a lot of travelling that one does, we're always kind of taking images of standing on the land or standing on the coast looking out. And it occurred to me that perhaps that, like some of these historical images that I'd found in the local library in the historical collection, that perhaps actually my focus should be in a literal and a metaphorical and in a visual context, should actually be mirroring me looking in, you know, as a visitor, as an outsider, whatnot, in the same ways that the French and the English explorers at the time had mapped different parts of the Western Australian coastline in these beautiful profiles. And of course, touching on my own cultural history, you know, there's a huge wealth of visual material in Chinese landscapes, and the scroll, and thinking about perspective and the spatial kind of compositions within those works. And so therefore, you know, being at the library, looking at all these documents, thinking about the things I'm interested in my own practice, I mean, it was just pretty straightforward after that first month, part one of my trip, that I was going to make this drawing. It just fell into place, and I wanted it to be something that tapped into the canyons of other visual documents that I had found on my travels too. So, yeah, I just had I had a great time. I had a great time. I had met so many people, and I have to say that having the residency in two parts afforded me the benefit of knowing that the relationships and the rapport I was developing with people could be picked up where I left off the second time I was to arrive. And I think that really helped in me understanding that it wasn't just like any other residency I'd done where you just parachute in and then you go back home and that's pretty much the end of the engagement. I knew I was coming back, and I knew that the work would be finished and the work would be presented back at the library for everyone to see. And so, that length of time was really important, I think, in developing the concept of the work and the work itself.
Yeah, there was a definite reconnection, and I didn't meet Mimi on the first half of your residency. I met her up on the second half, and your reputation went before you. So I was really interested in meeting Mimi, and your reputation was good. You know, it was you're a pleasure to work with, and Mimi was very generous. We had her working very hard in the second part of her residency. She was only there for 3 weeks, and she didn't have a lot of time off to go walking on the beaches, and she totally threw herself into the community and the artists there that wanted to connect with her on a more professional level. And we organised high school workshops, which one of the teachers is sitting over there, which involved 3 high schools, and the kids really engaged with Mimi and her ideas, and it was a very rich and fruitful experience. And I remember one night we went to Lizzie's place for dinner. Lizzie is a member of the New Arts Committee, which we advocate for a contemporary gallery in Albany, and so we're sort of a lobby group. And Lizzie volunteered to cook dinner for us, and there was about, 10 or 12 women there, and Lizzie is a bit of a gourmet cook, so it was a real feast in itself. And I remember sitting there, and it was commented on, we must have all been thinking, here we're in a place like Albany, down the bottom of Western Australia, 450 kilometres away from Perth, and there's these amazing 12 women sitting around this table, and they're from all really different parts of education. We're all artists. We're all, some of them are very well educated with doctorates, etc., and very interesting lives in this very small community. So these communities in these rural places are very rich and do not discount us, because, you know, there is a voice there that needs to be heard. And at lunchtime I've been thinking about this whole urban space, and because I've sort of got this fixed idea of a fixed art gallery, I'm not so sure anymore, Marco. That's it. I think I'm going to go back and resign from that committee and start sort of advocating, give the $40 million to organisations like yourself, and which spreads the art around, brings us artists. I think it's a new contemporary way, and like Ian was saying, you're rethinking this whole space, and by having the Mimi's residency, I think it's going to... and what IASKA are doing, I think you really are covering new ground. Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say. No. Has anyone got any questions?